Coming up, Tzu Chi volunteers from Taipei, Taiwan mobilized to help the victims of the Bali Explosions. At an aid distribution at a Nepalese school, local volunteers shoulder the responsibility of carrying out the distribution. Welcome to DaAi Headlines. I'm Mary Lee. Thank you for joining us. On the evening of June 27th, about 500 people were injured in Taiwan after a fire broke out at the Formosa Fun Coast, a water park located in Bali, New Taipei City. The flames were suspected to have stemmed from an unknown flammable colored powder, which created an explosion after being sprayed onto a crowd. Tzu Chi volunteers immediately mobilized to care for the injured at the explosion site. The following morning, a disaster coordination center was also set up at the Tzu Chi grounds, as volunteers hoped to provide immediate and timely assistance to the victims and their family members.
A concert at Formosa Fun Coast in New Taipei City, Taiwan, turned into a nightmare as an explosion rocked through a crowd on Saturday, June 27th. Receiving news of this tragic accident, Tzu Chi volunteers immediately mobilized to care for the injured on site. On June 28th, Northern District Tzu Chi volunteers set up a disaster coordination center at the Tzu Chi grounds and also reported on the incident to Master Zheng Yan in Hualien.
平常有在访视有经验的能不能呢？有几位在这个时候去安抚家属，还有呢安抚这个的病患
We are really thankful to the Northern District volunteers for bringing all the experienced volunteers together.
On the night of the accident, many volunteers arrived at the site of the explosion to tend to burn victims and assist the critically injured to the hospital.
Those suffering from serious burns are currently in the ICU, and we were not permitted to visit their wards. So we had volunteers stationed outside the ward to assist and support family members.
Tzu Chi volunteers from New Taipei and Taipei cities have all been mobilized to provide the victims' families with all the support they need during these critical times. Emergency rescue workers arrived on scene to tend to the hundreds injured during the explosion at Formosa Fun Coast. Tzu Chi volunteers from Bali District also arrived soon after to offer their assistance.
When we arrived, we saw that there were injured people everywhere. Rescue workers told us to go further into the park, as there were more people who were really badly injured inside. It was a horrifying sight.
We poured water over their burns and kept calling out to them, telling them not to fall asleep. We also asked our Tzu brothers to help transport these victims to the hospital as they were in critical condition. A lot of them suffered serious burns. My heart ached when I saw all this.
Those who escaped relatively unharmed immediately tended to those who were injured. These young people have so much love in their hearts.
Not only was there chaos at the disaster site, hospitals in and around New Taipei and Taipei cities were also put on red alert.
Many patients who were admitted to the ER are now in stable condition, and their blood pressure has normalized. So we administered IV fluids to help stabilize their vital signs.
Due to the large number of casualties, Tzu Chi volunteers from Sanchong and Luzhou districts were stationed throughout the hospitals to assist and support family members.
Some of the patients suffered significant burns and their skin was peeling, so they were in a lot of pain. We poured water over their burns and urged them not to fall asleep.
On the morning of June 28th, volunteers at the Tzu Chi grounds also prepared breakfast for the victims' family members at the hospital, as they hope to help relieve some of their grief and pain.
The tragedy that took place on the evening of Saturday, June 27th at the Formosa Fun Coast Water Park in Bali was the worst dust explosion in Taiwan's history. The sheer number of the injured quickly overwhelmed the nearby regional hospitals and medical centers, and thus the Ministry of Health and Welfare had to initiate its mass casualty incident protocol and disperse patients to other hospitals in surrounding counties and cities. Though 31 kilometers away, the Taipei Tzu Chi Hospital was asked to take in 13 of the injured. At the Taipei Tzu Chi Hospital, medical staff comfort the family members of those caught in the dust explosion at the Formosa Fun Coast Water Park. Besides providing consolation money to each family, the superintendent also hands them a letter written by Master Zhen Yan.
Many of the victims' family members are in tears. I believe the Master's blessing will help them calm down. Our medical staff and volunteers will surely work hand in hand to help the victims and their families with everything they need from here on out.
Mr. Huang awaits anxiously outside of the ICU. His son was among those critically injured, but thanks to the kindness of the staff and the support of volunteers, he is now calmer.
I must thank Master Zhen Yan and the superintendent for easing our worries at this critical period, so we can cope with this calmly.
An alumnus of Tzu Chi College of Technology who just finished interning at the hospital was also a victim. At first, sent to Taipei City Hospital Zhongxing branch, the patient requested to be transferred to the Taipei Tzu Chi Hospital. The staff shall do everything they can for one of their own. It all started late Saturday evening when the hospital was notified that 13 burn victims from the water park explosion would arrive after 11 p.m.
Over 120 of our staff members immediately came from their home or dormitory, and everyone utilized their expertise to help these victims who were in a critical state, as 40 to 60% of their bodies were burned. As well, many suffered burns to their face.
The Tzu Chi Hospital in Xindian is 31 kilometers away from the water park in Bali, but due to the numbers of the injured, all regional hospitals and medical centers nearby quickly became full, and thus the Ministry of Health and Welfare had to initiate its mass casualty incident protocol.
We have established an emergency operations center at NTU Hospital and another one at Linkou Chang'e Memorial Hospital. Together, they coordinated the dispatch of ambulances and transfer of patients between Taipei, New Taipei City, Taoyuan, and Keelung. They also made sure no hospital was overwhelmed.
Although MOHW has asked all hospitals to ready their burn units, there are only a total of 88 beds in the burn units of all hospitals in Taipei and New Taipei City. In fact, the burn units of all Taiwan's hospitals only have a maximum capacity of 295 beds, but nearly 500 people were injured at the water park explosion.
By including the beds of the burn units in ICU, we should be able to handle all injured. If one hospital is full while another one isn't, we will coordinate between hospitals and get patients transferred.
Even if there are enough beds to accommodate all the injured, burn patients need special treatment and medication. With supplies quickly running low, it remains to be seen whether the country's healthcare system can really deal with the worst dust explosion in the country's history. Following the Formosa Fun Coast disaster, Tzu Chi volunteers have been accompanying the fire victims' families at the Danshui branch of the Mackay Memorial Hospital to soothe their anxious hearts.
Tzu Chi volunteers went to different hospital rooms to read a consolation letter from Master Zhen Yan to the fire disaster victims and their families. The volunteers also gave out consolation cash to 20 fire victims and accompanied the victims and their families at the hospital. The volunteers led the disaster victims' families in prayer, soothing their anxious hearts. Then the volunteers gave everyone a hot meal, warming their hearts and filling their stomachs.
Seeing us, he was very touched and said, "How can you Tzu Chi volunteers be so nice, accompanying them and bringing consolation cash for them?"
Among the disaster victims is Jiao Tong University student Chen Lingdan, who is from China. Chen's teacher came to see Chen and was touched to see the volunteers accompany the disaster victims and their families.
He is very grateful to the Tzu Chi volunteers for being here since yesterday. He praised us for our efforts.
While the fire disaster shows how impermanent life is, Tzu Chi volunteers' efforts have brought much-needed warmth to the disaster victims and their families.
Of the some 500 injured in the water park dust explosion on Saturday, one happened to be the son of Tzu Chi volunteer Xu Mingfen. Her 26-year-old son attended the color party at the water park, hoping to blow off steam from work with his friends when the unexpected tragedy occurred. Thankfully, she was able to gain support from her Dharma family members as they showed up at the hospital to offer their prayers and strength.
The day following the Formosa Fun Coast accident, Tzu Chi volunteers gathered at the Tri-Service General Hospital to offer warm sympathies and blessings to fellow volunteer Xu Mingfen, whose 26-year-old son, Lin佑轩, was caught up in the explosion and seriously injured.
He has second to third degree burns and is intubated, so he's unable to speak. He also has a lot of swelling in the burn areas.
As Lin suffered burns to 60% of his body, he is currently still in ICU. However, his condition is currently stable. Hence, doctors hope to begin skin grafting within the next month.
It is an unfortunate accident, but I have the support of my fellow volunteers, so I will try my best to stay strong and get through this.
She's calmer now because we have been by her side. We're here to support her and to help her turn her grief into strength.
Serving as a pillar of strength to the family members of the victims, Tzu Chi volunteers will continue to support them through these difficult times.
I want to tell my son that he should be strong and brave, as he has the blessings of so many people.
Next, we meet sisters Wang Sisi and Wang Jiaqi from昆山, Jiangsu Province. Both sisters suffered severe burns from a firecracker accident 3 years ago. Since then, local Tzu Chi volunteers have been visiting the sisters monthly and thereby inspiring the two girls to do their part to help other less fortunate people.
Tzu Chi volunteers always give the Wang sisters warm hugs upon arriving at the Wang residence. 3 years ago, 7-year-old Wang Sisi and 5-year-old Wang Jiaqi suffered burns to 48% and 68% of their bodies from a firecracker accident. Since then, local Tzu Chi volunteers have been visiting the pair every month.
不会，现在好自然。他不用绑那个绷带了。现在还会痒吗？不会。还会痛痛的吗？那衣服摩擦以后，他的伤。你好勇敢哦！姐姐先来一样的啊。对，就是这个。要马上。谢谢姐姐，你看多乖哦。
Sharing the vegetarian zongzi Tzu Chi volunteers brought them, the two sisters are very close, but they compete in one thing.
我拿。小心小心。 小心！你们两个今天怎么搞的呢？好，一个人拿2个，一个人拿2个哦。
They compete in making donations to Tzu Chi.
33.9，这是王思思的。上次5月份的王思思是26块5，王佳琪是36.3，爸爸的是17.3。
一人一善，创造爱的循环与善的共业。
For those curious about how these two children can forget the physical pain they suffered, the pair has an answer.
很开心啊！为什么开心啊？因为帮助别人很开心啊！
As we have mentioned, Taiwan's precious cypresses were nearly logged to extinction at one point. To mend the harm that has been done and to fight global warming, the government has been spending billions on reforestation. However, is this really working, or are such measures simply causing more harm to the environment? We find out in our reports.
This used to be a natural forest in Taichung's Dadu Mountain. However, I'm surrounded by trees planted by men. This is because 2 years ago, the local government cut down the forest and planted beech trees instead.
In 2012, the Dragon Steel Corporation wanted to expand its refinery in Taichung. In order to pass environmental impact assessment, it decided to donate about $400,000 to the Taichung City government's reforestation funds. Thus, they went into a natural forest to cut the trees down just so they could plant more trees.
In order to get the government's reforestation subsidy, 80% of the new forest has to be newly planted trees. Thus, they must cut down other trees.
This 20-hectare forest at Shanyangkeng of Dadu Mountain was listed as a nature preserve as the endangered leopard cat was found here in 2004. However, even the endemic Avicennia prickly ash is endangered.
People thought this was a weed and decided to cut it down. See, it has grown a new bud already. There are less than 1,000 of this plant alive in the wild now.
So, is this cutting down a natural forest to pave the way for a man-made forest truly better for the environment?
By clearing away the original vegetation, these corporations are planting trees that are said to help absorb greenhouse gases to compensate for the impact brought by their business activities.
With men doing what they will to the forests, the mountains are exposed. To remedy such a problem, the government decided to subsidize citizens planting trees up in the mountains, and thus a forest is now typically made up of one species of trees.
This is a forest consisting of Taiwania. Every tree here is only about 1 meter apart, which blocks out the sunlight so plants can grow here on the surface. Whenever there is torrential rain, this type of one-species-only forest doesn't do much to help with the water retention when compared to a natural forest.
The Taiwan government has already invested more than $3 billion in reforestation over the years. In the beginning, 2,500 to 3,000 trees would be planted in a 1-hectare piece of land.
By planting so many trees in such a limited space, without trimming and grooming, the trees just can't grow well. After 50 or 60 years, they may still be small and thin, which makes them useless. This is a Formosan cypress forest on Anma Mountain. Again, the trees were planted very closely together, so not every tree is getting the nutrition it needs. And thus, the Forestry Bureau is planning to cut down 1/3 of the trees here. By making rooms for trees to grow, they can develop evenly. This will also help stimulate their growth.
Scholars say 1 hectare of land can accommodate about 600 to 900 trees at most. Thus, all excess trees should be cut down to help the forest grow.
Many environmental activists will jump up whenever they hear about trees being cut down.
Forest preservation is an ideal shared by most people nowadays. However, simply planting more trees is not the only solution. Studies show a kilogram of earth in Taiwan's forests contain about 10,000 seeds belonging to shrubs, trees, and grass. This means just let Mother Nature do its work and stop meddling with the environment. With 6,000 hectares of man-made forests being created every year in Taiwan, this means the same area of natural forest is being destroyed and replaced. But if mankind is truly to undo the harm they have brought to the mountains, they should really just stay away and do no more harm.
Tzu Chi's efforts in Nepal have not only introduced the NGO throughout the countryside, but also inspired local residents to step up and volunteer. Recently, a group of young volunteers came together to organize and run an aid distribution for 42 families. Their efforts are a resounding affirmation of the message that Tzu Chi has been sending in the country.
Local volunteers worked to get aid supplies ready before taking some time to brush up on their sign language. Although veterans of previous distributions, today is the first time the group is in charge of running a distribution.
We three are from one family and others are from other families, but now we are one family.
A former Cash for Work participant, Srijana, is in charge of translating during the event, handling HR and logistic issues, and of course dealing with Nepal's frequent thunder showers.
The name is Taiwan Buddhist Tzu Chi Foundation, but all the volunteers is from different countries. I'm from Malaysia. So some of them from Taiwan.
Srijana next reads Master Zenyan's letter to the earthquake victims.
Namaste!
Veterans of previous distributions, the local volunteers get every detail right as they hand out aid to each recipient.
1, 2, 3, go!
Today's distribution targeted 42 families, offering oil, rice, and daily necessities. To ensure those who need the aid get it, the distribution name list was double-checked by the director of a local university.
The local volunteers provide to me any collect the name list and edit. Who is the data is very correct. I'm watching.
It is obvious that the seeds of goodness have taken root here.
Today I feel very happy because this is my first distribution to all the people. So today I feel so happy.
Thank you for all. Thank you, Kanan.
As Tzu Chi volunteers watched the local volunteers carry out the distribution without a hitch, they became more and more confident that this love will continue to spread.
Actually, we designed a group on Facebook, and that will be containing these members. And if there is any program or any schedules to be made, then we will be informing on that group.
In the aftermath of the April earthquake, thousands of schools in Nepal were either destroyed or sustained serious structural damage. Among them was Bagasori Higher Secondary School in Bhaktapur. Earlier in June, the Tzu Chi Foundation agreed to erect 6 prefab classrooms to help students get back to their studies as soon as possible. Now that these classrooms have been completed, a handover ceremony was held at the school on June 28th.
The Bhaktapur District Education Officer and Principal of Bajaswari Higher Secondary School participate in a ribbon-cutting ceremony to mark the opening of the 6 prefabricated classrooms built by the Tzu Chi Foundation. Students put on a traditional dance which livened up the atmosphere. Embracing a new beginning, students and teachers are determined to leave the traumatic memories of the earthquake behind.
After the earthquake, we were at a loss what to do. We didn't know what to do next. Thankfully, the Tzu Chi Foundation offered to help us. I would like to extend my deepest gratitude to them. When our school was in crisis, Tzu Chi volunteers not only brought us tents, but also built prefab classrooms for us. Furthermore, they brought books and uniforms for the students whose lives were affected by the quake.
As a gesture of gratitude and appreciation, some 20 students served tea to their teachers, which for both teachers and students alike was a first-time experience.
This is my first time. I feel very honored, but I don't know about this ceremony, but it's great. So beautiful. We are very proud of you, no?
More than 400 students also received new school uniforms and school books from the volunteers. Thanks to the assistance of the Tzu Chi Foundation, these students are now able to continue school uninterrupted in a safer learning environment and build a better, brighter future.
At the end of the program, we turn our focus to Malaysia, where Tzu Chi volunteers arrange for young children to spend a day at the local retreat in Kulai instead of immersed in their virtual electronic worlds. We will leave you with these images. Thank you for watching DaAi Headlines. Goodbye.